What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and every week I go through and I update my rest of season rankings for the people on the Patreon, and I figured it would be a fun exercise today to talk through the players who have gone up or skyrocketed the most spots since my Week 8 update. So these are some guys we didn't get to talk about on the Top 10 Lessons Learned video, but players that I think are interesting right now, that perspective on them is changing. So today, we're going to talk through my 6 players that are skyrocketing up my Week 9 rest of season rankings in fantasy football. With all that being said, if you enjoy, make sure down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go. Now, first up, we have pretty much the Dallas Cowboys passing offense. We have Dak Prescott and we have Ceedee Lamb. Dak Prescott was my QB 15 last week. Ceedee Lamb was my wide receiver 11. Heading into this week, though, Dak Prescott's my QB 10, and Ceedee Lamb is my wide receiver 7. So Dak has gone up 5 spots. Ceedee Lamb has gone up 4 spots in my rest of season rankings. And it's really just because we had the awful game versus San Francisco, where they get blown out 42-10, and it really feels like they went to the drawing board and changed some things. And they decided, we just got our teeth kicked in on prime time, and they've been much better since, where the 2 games after, I believe that they had a bye week somewhere in the middle of that. I think it was week 5. Then they played a game, maybe, I was going to say the Rams, but no, they played a game versus somebody else. Bye week, another game here, and they're scoring a ton of points. Since losing to the 49ers on prime time, Dak Prescott is the QB1 in points per game at 27 points per game. Again, that was the week 5 game. They lose 42-10. Week 6 on, Dak Prescott's the QB1 in points per game. Ceedee Lamb is the wide receiver 1 in points per game at 29.9 points per game. Now, that's not going to hold, but things are clicking here. We saw this last year as well, where Ceedee Lamb was the wide receiver 17 in points per game with 14.6 heading into the bye. And then on the other side of the bye, he was the wide receiver 2 at 20.5 points per game the rest of the season. And I really like what this offense has been doing here, where if we just look at, this is a chart from Sam Hoppen, by the way. He does like weekly breakdowns every week, just sort of on matchups. And I think that there's really nobody else that just kind of compiles all of this good data here. But you can see like the Dallas offense is good. Like as much people I think social media really gives Dak a tough time. But you can see here, this is quarterback efficiency from Kevin Cole. So you have PFF offensive grade on the x-axis, EPA per play. So that's just per play efficiency. And Dak Prescott's up there with the great quarter, like he's behind the Tua, Josh Allen, Mahomes tier of things, but he's right in, he's right there with like Goff and Hurts and Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. Like he's in the part where there's good quarterbacks. I don't know how it's a crazy take or a hot take to say Dak Prescott's a good quarterback. He's a good quarterback. But you can see on the Sam Hoppen chart to the left here where EPA per play, they're amazing. They have just like green across the board, EPA per drive, pass EPA per play, explosive pass percentage. And the biggest thing to look at is the PROE and the neutral pass percentage. That is pass rate over expectation. So on a per play basis, how often are they passing above what's expected? And then you have neutral pass percentage. So just in neutral situations, how often are they passing? And you can see 13th and 10th is still a lot, but the last 4 weeks is that next column. And they've really cranked it up on their passing volume, where they've gone, they're 7th in the NFL in pass rate over expectation. They're 7th in the NFL in neutral pass rate over the last 4 weeks. So I'm not going to say they've abandoned the run, but they've really leaned into their passing game here, and that's a beautiful thing for Dallas, for their pass catchers. Then on top of that, you have some sort of downward momentum from guys like Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson with the Kirk Cousins injury. So that's kind of why Ceedee Lamb is rising up rankings, and then why Dak is rising up rankings, because more pass volume and things are just clicking on this Dallas Cowboys offense. Now, when we go to our next player here, skyrocketing up rankings, we have, and I really should have taken a victory lap on the Top 10 Lessons Learned video, but I believe this was the Monday night game, so I couldn't have even talked about Gibbs. So I'm glad we're talking about him now, because it's not like I would have covered him in the Top 10 Lessons Learned video for week 9. Now, when we talk about Gibbs, he goes from my RB16 to my RB13. So he moves up 3 spots. Now, that doesn't seem like a ton, but in season, that's a pretty good bit. He's jumping up like a tier pretty much. And I moved up Gibbs because I think his production for a second there was, okay, David Montgomery was out. Gibbs is the main guy. He's getting that volume. But now, to me, it kind of seems like it's not just him being a product of volume, right? Like it feels like he's now a special enough player that they can't afford to leave him on the bench, if that makes sense. Like, pretty much before these last 2 or 3 weeks, it seemed like, I think he's the number one PPR running back over the last 2 weeks. But before that, it was just, okay, he's the lead back with David Montgomery out. When he comes back, Montgomery will be the guy. Now, I'm not saying that Montgomery is going to be completely sort of cast to the side. That's why Gibbs is just my RB13 at this point. But I think that he's given them no choice but to put him on the field when they can, right? And now this is a chart from Tej Seth, I believe, on Twitter. And you can see, so it is showing his explosive run rate. He leads the entire NFL in runs over 15 yards, or the rate of runs over 15 yards. And then you have negative run rate. So how often is a player getting stuffed or putting up negative yardage on a carry? Gibbs is almost never doing that. Like, he is in this weird area where pretty much only 5% of his runs are going for negative yards, and that would be league best if not for Khalil Herbert. So he's in this area where he's not boom or bust. Like, he's not giving you huge negative runs, but he's also giving you massive explosive plays. And I think that is huge for a runner between the 20s. Now, of course, Montgomery is going to be on the goal line, but I think when it comes to between the 20s running the ball, Gibbs has now earned his keep in that area of the field. And to me, that's very important. We've had David Montgomery now suffered 2 injuries this season, had like 30 touches per game in a couple games. I can't imagine that they want to ram him the ball as much as they've been doing. Because, again, he's been hurt twice this year. They go into the bye. He's going to come out the other side. Now, the thing about Jahmyr Gibbs is the receiving upside, right? Like, he's proved that he's a special runner. He hasn't proved that he's a special receiver yet. And that's what's very interesting to me because, yes, David Montgomery is going to take away the volume in the running game. But as long as Jahmyr Gibbs can get like 10 to 12 carries and then add on, 6, 7, 8 targets in the passing game, we're going to be good to go because he's 5th among running backs in target share. He's 5th in reception, so he's getting the receiving volume. What I'm trying to say, he hasn't been efficient yet. He's 21st among running backs in yards per out run, 38th in explosive reception rate. So despite being this explosive electric runner, he hasn't really shown it much in the passing game, but I do think that that's going to come, right? We know rookies get better as the year goes on. We have the bye week coming out of the bye week. I think we're going to see bigger plays from him in the passing game, and that's going to be very exciting for what he can be. So again, I'm expecting 5 to 10. I mean, he's gotten 9 targets in some games. You can expect 5 to 10 targets in a given game, 10 to 12 carries with David Montgomery. And I think it's going to be just fine to keep him in the RB1 conversation or back end RB1 conversation. And on top of that, this is a chart from Hayden Winks that shows there's plenty of volume to go around. Even without David Montgomery these last few weeks, Detroit is 3rd among running backs or 3rd in the NFL in fantasy usage to the running backs. So it just takes into account all carries to running backs, all red zone targets, carries, goal line attempts to the running back position. There's a lot of points to go around in Detroit. Now, our next player here we're going to talk about is Joe Mixon. Now, Joe Mixon was my RB19. He's now my RB16. I moved him up 3 spots. And the idea here is that a rising tide lifts all sails, all ships, however that saying goes. We know Joe Burrow is back. They beat the 49ers. He's running around. He's breaking Nick Bosa sacks and going crazy. But the biggest thing to me for Joe Mixon is, one, offensive efficiency, right? So they're going to move the ball better. They're going to have more goal line attempts, all of that. But then as well, Sam Hoppen points out here, Joe Burrow snaps under center from weeks 1 through 6 is 15. He had 14 snaps under center in week 8 alone. So if we can get some more pro-style offense from under center, I think Mixon's a much better runner where he can get a full head of steam come downhill out of the backfield as opposed to those kind of Tony Pollard, Mike McCarthy carries where it's just out of shotgun, ramming them between the guards. That doesn't really seem to be Mixon's bread and butter, and it's kind of what he's been forced to do this season. Now, if they can sort of get more into, again, under center looks, pro-style offense, where then you can kind of play that game of play action and RPOs out of that and, use Mixon as bait and then chuck it deep to Jamar Chase and keep the defense on their toes. That's going to really open up and lighten up the box for Mixon while also getting, that full head of steam out of the backfield. And we saw it last week where this was his first game where he had over a 5 yards per carry. It was his best PFF grade game of the year. He had, I believe, the most rushing yards he's had. You can see across the bottom. This is on PFF week 8. But he had, 16 attempts for 87 yards, a touchdown. He had the most yards after contact per carry. Or no, He just had the most yards after contact in a game he's had this year, or tied for it. He had 3 missed tackles forced. Like, he just looked good, man. He had a long of 20. He had 3 runs of 10 or more yards. You barely see Mixon do that before then. He also had a long breakaway run. He had 4 runs for first downs. He just looked good, you know? And we haven't seen Mixon be good or efficient in a while. And I think that the pro-style offense, being under center, actually being able to run an offense and not just have Joe Burrow on his heels in gun, does a lot of things for the run game. So he's getting a ton of volume right now. He's RB13 in expected points per game. That's just, you know, his carries, his targets, his goal line attempts, how many points should he be putting up. He should be the RB13. He's the RB20 in points per game. I think he's going to start creeping into the back-end RB1 conversation as this offense gets humming here. Now, before we talk about this next player, I want to let you guys know this is absolutely huge. Underdog is too kind, all right? We are not one of the bigger creators on here attached to Underdog Fantasy, but they have lobbed you guys a partner special here, Garrett Wilson on primetime Monday Night Football. If you've used my promo code in the past, or if you use my promo code right now, you get access to this special pick'em line where it's just higher 0.5 total yards. Garrett Wilson in 24 career games in the NFL has never gone under 0.5 total yards. He's most likely going to hit this, and what it does is it pretty much gives you a free space in the pick'em lobby around there. This is just a dummy one that I made. We're going to do sneaky starts later, and I'll sort of put together an actual pick'em slip. But you can see you can go higher or lower on receptions, receiving yards, all of that. You can link up or string together as much as 5 to 20 extra money. You can 10 extra money if it's 4. If you get 3 right, you get 6 extra money. Just a fun way to do some pick'em lines that you can't really find anywhere else. String them together. Have a nice little sweat for the big game. So again, if you've used promo code Ron, you get access to this. If you haven't used promo code Ron and you're new to Underdog Fantasy, make sure you check it out. Underdog has best ball, pick'em lines, not even just for football. You can string together the Garrett Wilson line with like LeBron James higher 3-pointers if you wanted to. But it's all in there. If you're new to Underdog Fantasy, again, use promo code Ron, and promo code Ron will match your first deposit up to $500. Which is pretty crazy, if you ask me. You can find it in the description, comment section down below. You click the link. It'll take you right to Underdog Fantasy. It'll use promo code Ron. It'll match your first deposit up to $500, and you'll have this Garrett Wilson special pick'em sitting in the pick'em lobby waiting for you. Again, if you've used it in the past, you'll have access to it. Now, after that, we have Sam Howell. He was my QB 20, and he's now my QB 12 rest of season. So we moved up 8 spots. You might be like, Ron, that's a little bit dramatic, don't you think? And this is really what it comes down to for Sam Howell, is that like running back is just kind of like, it's not all that, or quarterback isn't all that sexy. Like, I pulled this up here. This is from Fantasy Calc, just kind of the QB landscape. Of course, you have your elites with like Allen, Hurts, Mahomes, Lamar, and you have that next tier of like Herbert, Burrow, Tua, Dak, and Lawrence, like we just talked about Dak. And then we just have like this jumble to me of like Stroud, Goff, guys who aren't really scramblers. They're efficient in the pocket. We're still waiting for Fields to come back from injury. So I don't mind pushing up Sam Howell a little bit aggressively in that kind of big jumble of quarterbacks, because he is in a perfect spot right now where this is just an amazing environment for a quarterback like Sam Howell, where this is another chart from Hayden Winks. You can see Washington is 3rd in neutral pass rate since week 5. Like, it's Chiefs, Bengals, Washington, and then it's Eagles, Dolphins. Like, it's pretty crazy. Like, that is a dream for fantasy football, to be in that area of passing the ball. So they're passing the ball a ton. They're 2nd in pass rate over expectation on the entire season. They're 4th in pass attempts per game, and that creates an amazing environment for Sam Howell to thrive in. On top of that, he's the QB8 in points per game right now at 18.6, and I'm sure you guys know this. Like, this isn't news to anybody, but Washington trades away Chase Young, and they trade away Montez Sweat. So their defense has now gotten much better, and it was already letting up a bunch of points every single week. And you kind of create this environment that we saw last year, if you remember, with Justin Fields. They trade away Roquan Smith, I believe. They trade away Roquan Smith, and then from there, you just get shootouts because their defense is letting up 30 every game, and that was when Justin Fields was really hot. I think we're going to get something similar here for Sam Howell, where Sam Howell, against the QB8 in points per game, the defense is now worse. They're passing the ball a ton. They're going to be playing from behind a ton. Their defense is going to let up a bunch of points, and you just get kind of the perfect storm for a guy who's going to probably give you back end QB1, high end QB2, QB10 to like QB12 point per game production. And that's really important. Again, it's just kind of a jumble of quarterbacks, and I don't mind pushing up Sam Howell in that range. Now, the last player we're going to talk about here is Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards he's actually the biggest riser on this list. He went from my RB41 to my RB28. He rose 13 spots here, and it's pretty simple. Now, this is a chart from the utilization report, or a table from the utilization report over on My Fantasy Life. It's made by like Dwayne McFarland. It's amazing. It puts together snap percentage, rush attempt share, route percentage, everything on a per game basis. And you can see Gus Edwards over the last 2 weeks, he's put up 20 plus PPR points in back-to-back weeks, which is nice, but the usage is what's really important, where he goes and he sets his season highs in rush attempt share, where you can see 64%, 68%. He has never been above 60% before. And then inside the 5 attempts, 100%, 100%. So he is now the 2/3 rushing leader. You can see, again, the rush attempt share. And now he is the goal line back. So if you can give me the preferred rusher, the 65% rusher of that backfield in Baltimore, plus all the goal line attempts in the NFL's 7th best scoring offense with Lamar Jackson, to me, in a pretty murky running back landscape where you have like Jerome Ford and Amari DiMercado kind of being every week starters, Gus Edwards, again, he's my RB28. So to me, high-end RB3, I think makes a lot of sense if he's going to be kind of the main guy for the Ravens as a rusher. Just between the tackles and on the goal line, that's perfect for us. Now, that is going to do it for us today. I appreciate you guys watching. Again, make sure you check out that Garrett Wilson underdog special. If you've used the promo code in the past, you get access to it. If you haven't used my promo code, you can use it now, and you can get access to this partner special Garrett Wilson pick'em line, higher 0.5 total yards, and just sort of have some fun either with the NBA games going on right now. You can do NFL, NHL, all of that good stuff. It's all there. There'll be a link down below in the description in the comment section. If you are new to Underdog Fantasy, you can click it. It'll take you to Underdog Fantasy. It'll use promo code RON. It'll match your first deposit up to $500. Now, if you've already on Underdog, maybe you use somebody else's promo code. That's all good. You can help and support the channel by leaving a like, subscribing, all that good stuff. Anyways, I'm going to now write the Sneaky Starts video. That should be out later, or maybe tomorrow morning. We'll see. But as always, I love you guys, and I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my